Hello, I'm Martijn Graat and this is Does Logistics Matter? A podcast on trends and innovations in supply chain and logistics. Answering yes to the question today is Ken Teese, Director of Sales Enterprise at Getac. In this episode, we talk about digitalization in logistics, the impact of connectivity and real-time data access, why logistics companies are moving from Windows to Android, and how handheld devices increase the efficiency of logistics operations. Please enjoy my conversation with Ken Teese. Hi Ken, welcome to the show.
Hi Martin, very good to be here.
Ken, the first question of this podcast is always the same, and that question is, does logistics matter?
Every day, all the time. Yeah, logistics absolutely matter. And we see it in so many different facets of our lives.
Absolutely true. Now, you work in logistics, or at least with logistics. Can you tell me a little bit how you ended up working? Well, I'll just call it in logistics.
Yeah, probably a better way of saying it, I support the logistics community, the industry.
Mm-hmm.
I work for a component manufacturer. I've been with Getac now, coming up on 6 years. The good news is I've always been in the technology world, and logistics being one, and I get to serve all the kind of the Fortune 500 companies that support the logistics, everything around that, whether it's ship, rail, trucking, retail. Those are all kind of my base customers.
Great. So, working with transportation companies, logistics service providers, or retail companies, what are the main challenges that you hear when you talk to them?
Well, what I see more recently, and I want to talk also about the lockdowns, but what I see really is the need for digitalization. The one thing
Mm-hmm.
that's been constant in this world is, productivity and efficiency always has to improve. Obviously, we're all focused on profitability, but the
Yeah.
idea is what to do with the digitalization of the logistics world. Obviously, moving from pen and paper all the way to in a digital format, so there's very little user input. People can see things real time, but it's really from the beginning to end in that digitalization process that I think is really had a lot of focus and a lot of energy for improvement.
Yeah, Ken, for sure. Digitalization is, I think, well, top of mind for most industries, but especially in logistics, where it's really taken flight in the past years. I can remember when I first started working in logistics in the 90s. My first the desk of my first job was actually next to a fax machine. We've come a long way.
Unfortunately, I do remember those days. You know, so another pain point is it's great to say we want to go digital or whatever, digitalization of the supply chain. The challenge is in some of the logistics aspects, and in the opinion where we're at, is we have to cover vast amounts of area, vast amount of spaces, right? We
Mm-hmm.
have Wi-Fi is greatly improved over time too. We got Wi-Fi 6 now, I think is the latest or whatever. We do
Yeah.
a lot in CBRS, which is the Citizen Band Radio Service, a private network. We go out to yards, whether it's intermodal transportation and the ports, and they have to cover just square miles of data, and all that digitalization needs to happen through wireless type connectivity. And while Wi-Fi worked well from some applications, just we see a lot of customers moving to this private network, the CBR network, to be able to pull and connect information real time from all those digital devices. And another tough thing is how to connect to those devices, in an MDM type application, a mobile device management. Who gets to see what, the prioritization, the structure in regards to that data. That those are all kind of pain points that here at GTAC, or at least that we see within the industry.
Yeah, no, I mean, Wi-Fi is nice, but it only goes so far. I mean, I know my kids absolutely wish that Wi-Fi would be that the Wi-Fi we have at home, that they could access that from miles away, but that's not possible.
Yeah.
So it's connecting via different technologies that send and receive data. And you're also pointing out security, which I guess is also a very important factor. I mean, there's been several security incidents when it comes to devices or installations being hacked.
Very good point. I mean, when we think about the whole MDM application and device, a lot of customers require multi-point, multi-factor authentication, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's
Yeah.
not just who has a login. Passwords are pretty easy. We all have too simple a password, right? But when it
Yes.
comes to that logistics and supply chain, some of that information is very critical. Some of the goods are very critical. So we want to make sure whether there's at least a couple of points multi-factor authentication, whether it's a fingerprint, biometric, whether it's a hello camera, whether it's a card scan. Those are all things that we have to factor in to see what makes the most sense for the customer. Now, going back to that, digitalization and then the connectivity. One
Mm-hmm.
thing we all know is when that bandwidth drops, when time takes a little longer, boy, that's a great way to increase your blood pressure, because we all want it real time, we all want it faster, and we all seem to have less patience. And I think that's an area that's really improved. Going back to that, the private network, we have some applications where you can have dual SIM cards. Maybe one carrier. I'm based in the U.S. Maybe one carrier is good in one area of the yard, but it's not good in another area. Or if you think globally, our east side or the west side of the U.S., maybe
Yeah.
one carrier is phenomenal in this area, but the other carrier is terrible here. We were able to win a large transportation company here in the U.S., and they actually have dual SIMs from the two top carriers within the device, because they need that data instantly. They need that data real time, and any type of slowing down of that data, it costs money. And that whole digitalization, those are the pain points that they really need to focus in on.
Yeah, so the mobile carriers, that's longer distances. We have 5G, which is fast, but that's not everywhere, right?
I agree. And in some of the remote places, it's probably harder to have that 5G, right? Technology
Yes.
happens in where the masses are, but in some of these areas, in the logistics world, like I said earlier, it carries a large vast space, and that's where this private network is really growing, where they really set up their own private network for that application. We also deal a lot with AT&T, FirstNet, and then there's a Verizon Frontline. We work with some customers where they have to prioritize. If something bad were to happen in this world, right? Whether it's a
Yeah.
storm or, God forbid, an accident of some sort, the first responders of the world, they need to have access, and they can't be bogged down with the consumer level of people really loading down the network. So we can go ahead and set up some wireless modems where they focus in and they get priority on the network for that instant access, for that information, so they can communicate what's needed to the appropriate personnel.
Yeah, so your clients are using both commercially available signals, but also what's the right word? Proprietary signals.
Proprietary, yeah. I mean that's
Proprietary. Thanks. Yeah.
all based on the application. You can imagine the logistics. If you want to move a little more into the oil and gas or the refineries or whatever, moving the goods of the logistics, and that's maybe warehousing. But that information, if something were to happen there, they need instant access and they need priority on the network for that information.
Yeah. And you're talking about devices of different types. So how do these devices help these companies be more efficient in their processes?
Yeah, I think what you really need to do, at least in my opinion, here at Getac, we have a broad range of products to suit every different type of need. So it's really
Mm-hmm.
important to understand the application, the end user point. What are the needs, and in the digital aspect, is it mounted anything? Is it mounted on a forklift, in a truck? Is it for quality control or management type control? Safety, obviously, safety is huge. We're all about safety at Getac. But the mobility aspect of what you need. So that all comes with screen size, that comes with weight, that comes with battery performance, connectivity, how much data is needed. It's great that you're actually have a tablet, but maybe you need to take pictures. Maybe you need GPS, right? Where that picture was taken. all that information, how much data is in there. If there's something wrong, they got to take a picture of it. They got to write a report. All those things factor into what device best suits the customer. And that's all ultimately what we're trying to do here is look to a complete solution for the end customer, for their application, to really improve that whole digitalization stream from beginning to end.
Yeah. Do you have some examples how do I say, like before and after examples of how devices have improved
So
processes?
great question. But probably the best example I have is we recently won, like I said, a large transportation company here in the U.S. And they had a big switch here. They actually went from a Windows based application to an Android based.
Okay.
And that's something that we've seen increase a little bit. And you could probably speculate a little bit as to why that might be the case. But they made the decision that Android was easier to deal with. And I think at one point in time, Android maybe didn't have the security they needed. This is something I've seen a long time ago or whatever, but they've greatly improved. And like anything, the pendulum sometimes swings from one side to the other. But they had a window-based application, with the tablet they were using for several years, but they were having terrible, terrible boot up time with the device. A
Yes.
user would come in, go to the forklift, scan their badge in for their authentication, and on a good day, it was 15 minutes before they could even move the forklift an inch. And as you can imagine,
15
when you have
minutes.
a huge warehouse and there's 80 bays or whatever it may be, and there's hundreds of forklifts and there's trucks, every second matters. And I guarantee you, they would measure things down to the second when it came to the time is money type aspect. But they wanted to go from a Windows based to an Android based, so they completely redid their software program to accept that. And you can imagine it was a huge undertaking. And with that, they went from, like I said, 15 plus minutes if everything connected well, right? Because you got the access points, you got the scales. I'll talk about me a little bit later. Got to talk about the scales, but you got all these things that need to come together. They went from, like I said, a plus 15-minute boot up time to less than a minute. And I wish I had pictures of the faces of the people that got to see that real time. So the first time we did a little pilot with the customer, we were able to start up the device, and next thing you know, it boots up, and the forklift driver was able to to log in, and their eyes was like, no way, it was phenomenal to see that type of increase. So I mean, things like that. I mean, to go from one OS to the next OS, we're starting to see a little change in that.
I have not heard that many Android about that many Android implementations yet. I mean, I'm a huge Android fan myself, but that's just my simple my simple mobile phone. So. What do you hear back from users when it comes to usability? I mean, I can imagine if you talk to whether it's warehouse workers or drivers. So years ago, they would maybe get a device, and that would be like the most high tech thing they'd ever held. But now, usually they have, well, if they work in a warehouse, it's probably in their locker. But they have very, very sophisticated devices in their back pocket when they're at home. So do you see? Do you get feedback from users about how the current devices are compared to the technology that they have privately?
Yeah, so I think what we're seeing a little bit of shift in is a lot of times when it comes to the monitoring of warehousing or material handling, the goods, right? The user would have a tool to do a job, right?
Yeah.
Well, now that and then they go back to their desk and they'd have a workstation or whatever, and they would use the workstation. They
Yeah.
had all these different tools, and of course, the IT people had to manage these tools and the computers and make sure they're all connected properly and who had the right authority and all that fun stuff. But at least within Getac, we have the ability to really condense that to where that tool becomes your computer. Right? They can take that tool, they can scan whatever they do, whether it's a barcode, whether it's a key wedge type application with a camera, whether it's RFID. They can go out and do what they need to do, input that data, take it back to their desk, dock it and it boots up in their 227-inch monitors they have on their desk with a full size keyboard, and they can upload those pictures, go right to their whatever their Oracle, the ERP system they have in the back end, the things that they get to do. So now they're starting to realize they don't have to have both. They can go from back to forth, and that's really where the portability comes into play. As you can imagine, if something computer is being used on a mobile environment, a portable environment, in a warehouse, in an outdoor environment, guess what's going to happen over time? It's gonna fall, it's gonna drop, and guess on a consumer device, you drop it one time and you crack the screen, and then what happens on that? So I mean, what customers are starting to see is operational readiness is key, and you can really think about the downtime you may have in a computer. Obviously, if something were to break, okay, fine. Then what happens, right? You got to go back to IT. Are you issued a new one? Is there a one ready? So we really focus on just making sure the operational readiness is suitable for all different environments. Our customers sometimes get to work in an indoor environment or a warehouse environment. Some of our customers don't get to work inside. They're outside in the rain, sleet, and snow in extreme temperatures. Unfortunately, I live in Dallas. This is the past couple of weeks, and it's been in triple digits Fahrenheit, which is I think it's a low 40s Celsius, right? It's been
that's hot.
It's miserable hot, but those people that are in that environment, they have to continue working, right? So we think about all that in regards to the extreme temperatures, rain, sleet, snow. It's got to be able to read in the sunlight. We want a lot of carriers, wireless carriers that need to go on site to an access point, to a node or whatever. Maybe someone cuts a fiber cable by accident. Someone needs to pull up a schematic outside and be able to do that. So those are some of the situations you look at.
So devices are being used in all sorts of circumstances. Some potentially dangerous to workers. You earlier you also mentioned something about safety. So how does the device keep workers safe?
Yeah, great question. And obviously, like I said earlier, safety is pinnacle for what we want to do, and obviously supporting our customer in that fashion. One bad accident is terrible, but one thing we do, like on a forklift, you can picture it. We do forklifts of all sizes. Is not just a smaller forklift with pallets. We've moved goods, whether it's the automotive space, but we have a large automotive company here in the U.S. And what happened is a forklift that had a bad accident with an employee and unfortunately did bodily harm to that employee. Getac has a driving safety software program where as soon as that forklift moves, right, it'll turn off the screen. So that way the operator not looking at the screen, because they're all forced to do more with less and do faster, better, stronger, whatever. As they're driving down the forklift with this huge, massive load that's blocking their vision, they're probably they want to be looking at the screen, trying to figure out what's my next pickup, where's my next big, what truck do I need to go from, right? All that fun stuff. And what we say is, no, you don't get to look at the screen. You need to focus on your job driving. So that's one thing. And it's got to the point now with this large automotive manufacturer, they will not operate the forklifts if that software device is not fully functional. And the good news is it's fully calibrated. You can adjust the parameters. There's an accelerometer inside that can help sense movement. There could be a GPS that actually senses speed too. As soon as that forklift moves. So that's one area we really try to focus in on safety. Another area is we do a lot in the oil and gas industry. You can imagine in upstream or midstream, there's a lot of refinement, which means they're mixing chemicals. Some of those chemicals don't play well with others, right? Chemicals are explosive. And so what we do at Getac is we have certifications, and that's really sets the rugged apart. But we have certification that says you can now use this device in this area. So we really think about it. It's called intrinsically safe. It's an explosive environment. So we can go ahead and create a device that says, in this condition, you have to use this device, or in this condition, you have to use that device. and it's
Ah,
it's an option we can put in there. So that's another safety feature we come into play in regards to what works best. A simple safety feature is just how do you carry the device? Do you want a hand strap that you can support it? We have a shoulder strap where you can keep hands free if you need to, or whatever it may
yeah.
be. We have people climbing ladders, people in bucket trucks, whatever it may be. We're always trying to figure out ways how to make sure the operators obviously doing what they need to do, keeping themselves safe, whatever, and making sure the device fits their environment, that they don't have to worry about the device.
Yeah. So Ken, with all these different operations, do you see companies mainly using standard equipment, or is there also a lot of custom equipment being customized for different processes or different companies?
Yeah, I mean, here at Getac, I think we have 18 different product models. Within those models, you can really customize the specifications you need. All the way down to what processor you want to use, what RAM, what options, serial ports. You can imagine we do a lot with serial ports, RS-232. But if you need a barcode, RFID, biometrics, whatever it may be, you can really customize it.
Mm-hmm.
But the good news is we manufacture the devices from the ground up. Everything you really see is designed, built, quality control, engineered by Getac employees. So we've had a lot of customers come to say, you know what, we like your product, we like the specification. I know you can build to our specification, but can you make a change to something? Can you put power on pin 9 of the serial port? Okay, we can do that. Can you
Yeah.
change the port? We can do that. We've had some customers where the maybe just the fascia around the tablet, they want their company color that way.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
We want, when we issue a device to an employee, we want them to see our color, or whatever from that aspect. So we can do that from there. So yeah, we do. I think one of our strengths is our ability to not only customize from a specification standpoint of all the different variances, to also specifically what do you need in this environment.
So Ken, for companies that want to look into mobile rugged devices, what are the steps you would say they need to take?
I think what people need to do is kind of look at the total cost of ownership for a device, right? And
Mm-hmm.
TCO, total cost of ownership, it can be a deceptive term or whatever. Obviously, we're in the rugged space. We design things, as I said earlier, from the ground up. We're very purpose built, but we're not as low cost as a consumer grade or whatever. So when you're
Yeah.
thinking about what do you want to do and how do you want to manage this, and is it worth it? It's important to look over a time period, a certain time frame, the total cost of ownership. Obviously the shipment of goods I mentioned earlier, operational readiness. If something
Mm-hmm.
were to break, who's going to diagnose this? Who's going to fix it? Who's going to return it? Any certification that required, like the intrinsically safe I manage.
Yeah. Yeah.
How do you get that device back to it? In the rugged world, a lot of the key players like Gtech really do an extremely good job of making sure that device lasts, a very long time in tough environments. Our
Mm-hmm.
devices come with a 3-year bumper to bumper warranty. We have accident forgiveness. We have forward stocking on certain kind of field serviceable items. Our repair time, if something were to happen, you can run over a device. You might crack the screen when you run over the device or whatever. But when
Mm-hmm.
that happens, what happens? We have a very efficient repair time. We're about 2 days in repair. So we're very focused on making sure that device gets sent back to the users. We can order hot spares if needed. So again, on the rugged side, at least, and the need for it, it's important to think about the total cost of ownership, not the initial purchase, not just the capex, but what's going to
Uh-huh.
happen after 3 years. Some of our devices, they're 4 or 5 years. So after 5 years, we've had several customers that had a product for 4 years. We were assuming they were going to refresh their technology with our newer device. They said, no, the product's working pretty good. We're just going to run it for another year. And as a sales guy, I'm very happy the product's working well, but I'd love for them to reorder again. But for the most part, I think it's the looking at the total cost of ownership. And I think another thing, if
Mm-hmm.
I could, and real quick, is look about the people that are involved, right? Obviously you got the decision makers you always got to worry about, but who are the influencers? right?
Yes.
What about the lines of business? We have a very liberal demo program where we want to get the devices out to the lines of business, to the end users. We want them to use the devices out in the field and get a feel for it, because those lines of business personnel, that's the revenue generation for the company. If they're moving the
Mm-hmm.
goods, if they're testing the goods, if they're qualifying the goods, if they're servicing the goods, or whatever it may be, those customers are really important to the revenue generation of the company. So we really make sure our devices don't sit in the corner. It's not designed as an initial purchase at one point in time. And then obviously we work with the finance team. And I said earlier, safety is vitally important to what we do and for the customers from that aspect.
Okay, so they need to take into account that it's more than just buying the device, because the device is part of a larger system, and it operates over a longer time. And they also need to really think about what processes they use it in, and how people are using it, and let those people actually use it and say, yes, this is something that works, and this is something that's really efficient.
Very good. Because you can think about
Okay,
the
excellent.
the 2 to 3 times more failure rate you're going to have with a consumer grade. Our
Mm-hmm.
devices can handle a 6 foot drop test many times over or whatever. It can take the abuse. And again, it all goes back to how important is that data to you? Who needs to have access to that data? That operational readiness. Because time is money when it comes to the logistics, and then the data is key.
If you would look into the future when it comes to mobile devices in logistics and manufacturing processes, what what's just behind the horizon?
Yeah, I think I'll probably start off by saying what I see a little bit is in the past years, this customer, this component supplier did this. They all had their niches, and what they wanted to do and what they're able to do, and that
Yep.
required the logistics person to say, okay, I need company A, company B, C, D, E, or whatever. And they had all these different players coming together. I think what's changed a lot about is at least is a more of a solution based sale, right? Is we're
Mm-hmm.
pulling in all these different types of technology, and the customer is going to these system integrators or these component suppliers like Getac and saying, yeah, I need something for here, but here's a pain point, here's an issue, here's a challenge, here's something I'm trying to overcome, here's what I can't figure out. And they're really looking for that one stop shop, and maybe it's a little bit of one throat to choke, if you know what I mean. Obviously, if,
Mm-hmm.
if you're the
Yep.
go-to person and everything's on you, it's your responsibility to see that. So I see a lot more of this integration of saying I can manage this. So it's forcing a lot of people to broaden the horizon, stretch their wings in regards to what do they want to do in servicing and supporting customers. Another thing we see a change in worker demographics, right? Obviously, we all get older over time or whatever, and there's an all new wave of the younger generation coming in, and they're used to doing things different. They're used to seeing things more on like an app based versus Windows based or a computer based or whatever. So obviously, just those little types of changes, and maybe they don't understand ruggedness the way that I grew up understanding ruggedness and all the certification requirements that are needed to really help define rugged. So some of the issues there. Probably another fun one, and I'm no expert here, is really the effect
Yeah.
of AI, right? We've all
Yes.
heard it, we've all seen it. I know Elon Musk, if I can say his name, but I know he said we should be careful about it. I think that's a good thing and a bad thing or whatever. But I just think the overall, with AI coming down the pipe or whatever, I think we're going to see a magnitude, or at least a huge increase or better increase in regards to the efficiencies, the workplace management, the prioritization of goods, especially time sensitive goods, right? Harmful goods. Maybe that good can only stay in that cargo ship X amount of time, but that cargo ship had an issue. We need to figure out how to get that good off that cargo ship because other overall maybe bad things happen, whatever. But I think the overall effects of AI, I think will have a positive influence in regards to what we do in the logistics space.
Yeah, so and and I guess we'll need a rugged, fast, and secure devices so that the AI has so that the AI can communicate with the people on the floor.
Again, yeah, good input. We all need that data real time, and it has to work all the time. It has to work in all extreme conditions. It's got to be able to take abuse. It's got to be able to work with your gloves on and in freezing temperatures, whether it's a freezer, whether it's out in the oil fields in East Texas or wherever it may be. Those devices need to work on a regular basis. Yes, I agree.
Ken, thanks for talking to us about the challenges you see in logistics and manufacturing. Well, you even spoke about the oil and gas industry, and telling us more about rugged devices and how they improve logistics processes.
Great. Happy to have a discussion with you, and you made it a lot of fun.
Thank you for listening to Does Logistics Matter? For more on trends and innovations in supply chain and logistics, visit our blog at www.logisticsmatter.com. If you want to be a guest on this podcast, please send an email to podcast@logisticsmatter.com. This podcast was produced by Dimitry VleugelThe. The music is based on a sample by Ragaman and produced by Michael Spengler. This episode was supported by Getac. Getac Technology Corporation is a global leader in rugged mobile technology and intelligent video solutions, including laptops, tablets, software, body-worn cameras, in-car video, interview rooms, and evidence management software. Getac's solutions and services enable the vital work done by frontline workers operating in the world's most challenging environments. For more information, visit www.getac.com. That's Getac.com.